All right, so we mean going over the key of knowledge, which is the ash tree, and want to go deeper into it because it's a very simple tool, but it's gonna lead us to discovering a lot. So this is the AE symbol. So when the letters A and E are printed as one, squished together symbol AE, they form what is known as a digraph, a two-letter symbol or a ligature. The symbol represents the diphthong, one sound gliding into another with the same syllable. So this is also called the ash tree, has different names. So when we use this tool, what we're going to discover is we're going to first of all discover the place called the ether. So the ether is a classical element and it's also used in Greek mythology. So in the mythology, it means the bright upper sky, as you can see here. But I'm not going to go into that, but I'm just going to go into the classic elements. And the ether will still mean the same thing, though. But according to the ancient science, ether, right, is the fifth element. All right, so this is very important, or quintessence, quint 5. Essence, the fifth essence. It is the material that fills the region of the universe beyond the terrestrial sphere. The concept of ether is used in several theories to explain several natural phenomena, such as the traveling of light and gravity. So here, this is where our study is really mainly focused on. That ether, or AE, is the symbol that births the word that gives us the world of light. So since the world creates words, the AE symbol, the ash tree, the ligature, the diaphragm, that symbol is very important. And as we already discussed in the first video of Bantu knowledge, it is that it has to be turned around, all right? So I'll show you why it needs to be turned around. So the ether, it means pure fresh air or clear sky. The ancient people acknowledged it, so it was thought to be pure essence that the gods breathed, filling the space where they lived, and analogous to the air breathed by mortals. So we have our own air, but there's a different air. We have our own food, but there's a different food. Like manna is a different food. So ether is a different air. But that air is what we call spiritual things. So when you want to know what the spiritual is, it's ethereal, it's AE, it's from the ash tree, the key of knowledge. So the air breathed by mortals and the air breathed by God, right? And then ether is related to incinerate. So this is how we are purified, or that fire that's burning. It's because God breathes ether. So that purifying air is how we go through to go to God. So it means to burn, to shine. So when you're talking about hell and stuff like that, it's because God's purity will burn all impurities away, just like burning gold or burning anything. The more you burn it, it gets like crisp. It also gets pure, but it also gets less. So some of it evaporates. So this is what the ether does. It's just pure essence. And this is found from the ash tree. All right. But the ether now is going to help us to find the people. Now, whenever you are reading the Bible, when there's a people, there's a land. When there's a land, there's a people. It's always like that. Burn to shine, related to the name Aethiops or Ethiopians. See, Aethiopia, meaning people with burnt or black skin. So let's just jump to Ethiopia, because now it's showing us Ethiopia. It's showing us this place. This is important to realize. Ethiopia is not a country. The countries were created recently. But what makes Ethiopia special is that Ethiopia is like a land. It was the ancient name for Africa, right? The whole continent was called Ethiopia. So that's the key of knowledge, okay? That's in use here. But let's just go into Ethiopia a little bit so that we can get the context of why Ethiopia is so special. The river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from there it parted and became into four heads. So the first place that's named is that Eden, right? Or the first area, right? The name of the first river is Pison. that which compasses the whole land of Havilah, where there is gold. So when we talk about the second river now, it is the one that compasses the whole land of Ethiopia. So what makes Ethiopia so special is that Ethiopia has always retained, like there's a verse in the Bible that literally says, can an Ethiopian change its skin? And Ethiopia has never changed its skin from the beginning of creation. What makes it even more incredible is that Africa, the whole of Ethiopia was conquered, but that geographic place that is now the country of Ethiopia was unconquerable, was not conquered, and it still exists, even though Africa was conquered. All of it was conquered except for Ethiopia. So, in essence, the true essence of Africa still is unconquerable. But God, as always, is showing all of these things, so it's to show his power. But Ethiopia is special because it's mentioned since the beginning of creation. And this is recorded in the ash tree, or the key of knowledge, because through this Ethiopia, we're now going into Ethiopia as a country, and Ethiopia in the Bible, and Ethiopia in the ether. Adam himself lived in Ethiopia. He was an Ethiopian, so he had an existence within the ether. So when it says that he fell from the quintessence, which is the fifth element, he fell back into the third dimension. So the fifth element is at work in the fifth dimension. So we have the 3 dimensions, and then the time adds the 4th dimension, and then this adds the 5th dimension. So he was able to live in the 3rd dimension, where we are on this earth, in this like matrix, right? And then this matrix in the earth is created in Ethiopia, where we find the first humans on earth. And then the entities that came to the Garden of Eden were from the 4th dimension. And for us to overcome, we have to go into the 5th dimension, which is the ether, which is beyond time, or beyond the 4th dimension, and beyond flesh, which is the 3rd dimension, but within the air or space or the ether, which is the 5th dimension, which is the ash tree. The same goes for the element of ether. Ether is always moving in a circle. So that's why we turn the key of knowledge. All right. And this is how it works with a key. This is how it works in the ether. And this is how it works in the air, because that's the spirit. And the spirit is always spiraling. So this knowledge was used in the land of Put, and this forms the Pison, which is that river which creates pi. And this pi is a spiral. And this spiral has been like spiraling in every person, because every person comes from that water. So that ash tree also represents the flow of water, the flow of currents. It's just spiraling, and it's also infinite inspiration. So when they speak about this burning inspiration, they're speaking about ethereal, which comes from the air. They're speaking about Ethiopian, which comes from Africa. A lot of things in the world, if not everything, is inspired by Africa, because it creates the whole matrix of life. So the first person, or physically, the bones of the humanoid called Eve was found in Ethiopia, who creates the matrix of life. A matrix is a womb, and a matrix is a way of thinking. So our way of thinking comes from this ash tree, Ethiopia. Our way of thinking, our way of life, our way of being comes from Havilah, comes from Ethiopia. But all of this just comes from the ash tree, because to understand Havilah is to understand Put. To understand Put is to use the key of knowledge. The dimension where Adam lived was in the 3rd dimension, so he was in the earth of the Ethiopia. But Adam himself was an Ethiopian, so he was another dimension of the earth of the Ethiopian. But he had access to the fifth dimension through his fourth dimensional being, or let's just say it's timeless being, because at the time Adam was timeless because he lived forever, right? So he was in the fourth dimension, which is the dimension of time. So he was in the third dimension physically on Earth. He was in the fourth dimension beyond time. And he was in the fifth dimension within the ether. So he was the Ethiopia, he was the Ethiopian, and he was the ether at the same time. So what we have to do is to reunite all of those aspects of self, aspects of who we are, our own inspiration, to become back to be ethereal. Ether exists, although it's ignored. So ignoring it is just ignoring the whole dimension that's around us. But I guess that's the plan, because when you understand this, then you're accessing a whole different realm of thought, ideas, inspiration, and information. And you'll be able to do amazing things. So get access to the ether. And this happens through the key of knowledge. All right. So if you really are enjoying this, I would also recommend that you get the book Hustle and Motivate. This book is about what's inside of you, basically accessing the essence of who you are, the Eurasia. So that's a word you're actually going to find there. And Eurasia is a word that can't be translated into English. But you're going to find that in that book, which is the substance and the essence. So it's also about substance, it's also about the third dimension, and it's also about the fourth dimension. And it's going to carry on to the fifth dimension, but we're going to start with this because it speaks about the matrix of existence and life. And the matrix basically is a womb. The true matrix is Ethiopia, but now our matrix is Babylonia, which is Syria. So this is what we need to go back to the ether. As a matter of fact, we need to go back to the Havila, which is the having a lot, which is what was put in put, the person, the pi, the phi, and all of that. But it comes through Ethiopia. It comes in the ether. So you get this after you know who you are. And the best way that I was able to explain it, like I can make a million videos, but I felt that the best way that I can explain certain things is through that book. So if you're really feeling this, then this is your way of supporting me and this, and contributing to this work and learning something about yourself in the process, and something that's really going to transform your life, because I don't think you can read it and internalize it and remain the same. It's not designed like that. That's why it's interactive. So just get Hustle and Motivate and just check it out. And I've made it possible for anyone who wants it to get it, because I remember not having enough money to get a book that I really wanted and wondering like, hey, why is it so expensive? But you can get it for $1 or anything that you want. So you can get it if you definitely want it. The only reason you won't get it is because you don't want it, and you don't want to discover what it is that I feel is the most important knowledge that we must all get. And this starts with this key of life. So if you found this key of knowledge important, then you might also find that book even doubly so, because this is just the intro. Thank you for watching.